Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core studio. Welcome to the show. Alright, you know the drill at this point. We are well into spoiler season, and we have now some absolutely crazy cards. One that is going to see an absurd amount of play, and one that I cannot wait to build around. Someone coming back, not from the dead, I guess. I don't know if they were dead, but yeah, they're back and they're big, and let's jump into it. First up, starting off with Unstoppable Plan, and this card is going to be unstoppable. Hence the name. Enchantment for 3 mana in blue at the beginning of your end step. Untap all non-land permanents you control. This is going to be very popular. This is basically, okay, it's not Seedborn Muse. Seedborn Muse includes all permanents, including your lands. That being said, Seedborn Muse is on a creature, making it more susceptible to removal versus enchantments, which in my opinion, and I played quite a bit of Magic and quite a bit of Commander, enchantments are one of the hardiest types of things out there. They typically can stick around longer than most things because, I mean, artifacts, you've got like Vandal Blasty type things, and I would say there's more like artifacty destroy things out there than enchantments typically that are played. And then also when it comes to like Planeswalkers, you can attack those battles. I mean, you kind of want those to go and you attack them as well. Creatures, obviously, almost the wraths out there are going to be based on taking out creatures. That being said, just, you know, saying enchantments are pretty hardy. Yeah, this is hardy and it sticks out there, and it is an amazing amount of value for you. If you have a deck that cares about creatures that have, you know, abilities that tap, this is massive. If you have a deck that utilizes mana rocks, this is massive. I mean, basically, again, it is a way to, hey, okay, your mana rocks, oh, cool, awesome, yeah. Untap those, you get that mana again for your opponent's turn. So if you've got instant or sorceries, instants, I should say, or activated abilities, there we go. Absolutely a fantastic way to utilize that mana again. But yeah, especially for decks that are like, oh yeah, my commander has a great tap ability, or, you know, my other, you know, creatures have great tap abilities. Yeah, really take advantage of and use and abuse those as well. This card, I think, is going to be huge. I mean, it's not Seedborn Muse level because it doesn't untap your lands. That being said, it's a very good card, and yeah, I can see it seeing a ton of play out there. Obviously, because it's an enchantment as well. Sure, Enchantress deck that I guess depends on mana rocks as well, or has some tap abilities. Cool, yeah, it's an enchantment. You know, consider it. Okay, moving on. Oh, and I guess I should say, it's also basically just like pseudo-vigilance at the very least, right? For your creatures, you swing out and you're like, okay, they untap. Basically, they had vigilance. There you go. Next up, we've got Adrenaline Jockey, 3/3 Minotaur Pilot for 3 mana in red. Thank you, MTG Goldfish, for the translated version of this. Whenever a player casts a spell, if it's not their turn, this creature deals 4 damage to them. Whenever you activate an exhaust ability, get a counter on this creature. I mean, punishing players for casting spells on not their turn is nice. Even if you just like ignore that last part, like this is one of those kind of cards that like players just sometimes just throw it completely out the window and say, I don't want to play that because that other part doesn't work. If you just ignore that second part, yeah, I mean, this could just be a punishing card in certain decks out there. So yeah, being able to say, oh, group slug, yeah, hey, opponents don't cast spells on my turn, or if you do, you know, or don't cast spells on each other's turns especially. Actually, this does affect you as well. Keep that in mind. If it's not their turn, this does affect you. So if you're casting instant speed on an opponent's turn, it does affect you. So do keep that in mind. That being said, group slug decks typically don't care if they get punished by their own effects. This is going to be punishing on players and make players really think twice about casting on opponent's turn, but if they do, a good amount of damage for them. Again, 4 is a hefty amount of damage, so yeah, I guess Group Slug definitely could consider it. And of course, Minotaur decks. There you go. Also, again, the thing that pilots, you know, don't have, like, you know, that extra 2 to crew stuff, you know, that doesn't really make sense to me. I know it's, like, on the tokens, but, like, the actual cards don't have it. It's weird. Anyways, Exhaust Tribal as well, sure. Moving on! Demolition Scarab, 6/6 vehicle with trample for 4 mana in Goari. Enters, each opponent loses 3 life, you gain 3 life, and it's got crew for 2. What's that, like, basically Siege Rhino, like a new Siege Rhino, essentially? I think that was, like, ETB Drain 3, right? I think so. It was a 4/5 for 4 mana. Am I wrong? Maybe? Okay, anyways. Yeah, I mean, this is a very solid vehicle, of course. This is a card that can definitely, I mean, drain your opponents a good amount. Again, 3 and gain 3. That's nice. Of course, if you got ways to recur this, ways to essentially blink it as well. I mean, you're not really in the colors for blink, but if you have another color that does have the blink colors, typically, you know, blue, white, yeah, as a creature, you could turn it into a creature, then blink it, or you don't even need to with certain cards out there. So yeah, being able to drain your opponents quite easily is quite nice. That being said, yeah, a 4-mana 6/6 trample with crew 2. Crew 2 is a, kind of like a good solid amount of crew, right? 3, it's like, okay, that takes some effort to actually get to. Sometimes have to actually commit a creature that maybe would do something else instead of crewing it. But at 2, it's like, oh yeah, I'm not sending that creature into combat anyway. So crew this up, swing through a trample. It's quite nice. So yeah, vehicles, draining effect, obviously, as well. Blink decks, too, and recursion decks. Yeah, definitely consider this. It's pretty sweet. Moving on. We've got Flood the Engine. I should say power matters for the last one as well. Flood the Engine, enchantment aura for 3 mana in blue. Enchant creature or vehicle. When it enters tap, enchanted permanent. Enchanted permanent loses all abilities and doesn't untap to control untapped step. Okay, so this one is actually quite interesting in that we have seen a lot of different variations of like this exact same effect over the years. But basically, this one kind of takes it to a different level than some like the initial ones, where the initial ones are just like, okay, enchant a creature, it doesn't untap. I mean, it taps, it doesn't untap, or whatever it is. This one essentially is like, okay, first of all, it can be a creature or a vehicle, so it gives you a little bit of flexibility there, which is nice. That being said, it also taps when it comes into play, which is one of the newer kind of effects compared to like the previous ones where it's just like, haha, I got you because your creature's tapped. Now it's like, okay, I auto-tap it. That being said, though, it also makes that permanent lose all abilities and not untap. So, yeah, that can definitely see some play by basically shutting down an opponent's creature, especially an opponent's commander, by forcing that creature to tap and stay tapped and also taking away all abilities. So even if they can utilize their abilities, now they can't. So it's kind of like Lignify-ish kind of a thing. So it's quite interesting. You can definitely see some play, especially in, maybe in Aura's strategy for certain commanders out there like, all the auras in the world, just utilize them all, and all of a sudden I get a lot of value out of those. So yeah, Enchantress, auras, commanders, and ones that just want to shut down your opponent's commanders and make them have a miserable day. Moving on! We've got Green Belt Guardian, a 2/2 Elf Ranger for 2 mana in green. Pay a single green mana. Target creature gains trample until on a turn. Can also exhaust for 4 mana. Put 3 counters on this creature. Probably more of a limited card. I'm sure there are some decks out there like, I really want a creature that can give trample temporarily. But yeah, most of the time, it's going to be probably a very limited card. Or, I guess, technically, if you really care about exhaust abilities, sure, that as well. Keep on, it is an elf, though, so that is a relevant card type. Creature type, I should say. Next up, Bride's End. Instant for 4 and a white. This spell costs 3 less to cast if it targets a tap permanent, exile target creature or vehicle. So sure, I mean, if you're targeting a creature with it, target creature or vehicle. If you're targeting something that's tapped, it's just 2 mana, which is nice. That being said, yeah, there's a lot better, removal out there. Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile are definitely a thing, and a lot of other great removal out there that aren't dependent on a creature being tapped. And yeah, the fact that it gives you the option to take out a vehicle, that's nice, but still, like, yeah, there's better removal out there for the most part. It's not bad. There's definitely worse ones out there, but like, and it is in speed, but still, there's definitely better ones out there too. Next up, though, Ripclaw Rangler. I almost said Ranger. 4/3 vehicle for 4 mana in black. When this enters, each opponent discards a card. Crew 2. Yeah, I mean, a discard strategy can definitely consider it. It is a, ETB that can be used and abused potentially. A little more difficult in mono black, if you're running that, which typically discard decks are. I mean, Feign Death type effects, I guess, if this gets taken out. That being said, yeah, it's interesting for sure. Yeah, ETB, get rid of cards if you're doing a discard deck, that'll do it. Vehicle deck in general, maybe not. Just a 4/3 crew 2, so it's not all that great with just that. Next up, though, here we are, the creature of the hour, of the day, maybe even of the week. My goodness, this is fun. Mimeoplasm is back. Mimeoplasm, revered one. Yes, I am very revered by all of my subjects who are running away from me right now. A 0/0 ooze for X in Sultai colors. As it enters, exile 2 X creature cards from your graveyard. It enters with 3 counters on it for each creature card exiled this way. Pay 2, it becomes a copy of target creature card, exile with it, except it's 0/0 and has this ability. Now, rules lawyers out there, I'm going to need some help from you, because do you perpetually have access to those cards, or like if it gets blinked, is it now just remembering the new ones that it is exiling? I guess blinking doesn't really help it all that much, but if you replay it, I should say, if you recast it, if you bring it back to your hand, that kind of stuff, you pay the X to get rid of more things. I don't, that's kind of like the, does it keep track of the cards that are exiled with it? Because if so, obviously, that gives you a lot more flexibility, and you can utilize some blink effects I'll talk about here in a little bit. Regardless, that aside, this is really fun. Being able to essentially kind of like Lazav things, you know, and whatever the Lazav was, you know, out of the graveyard, but instead like from exile, and then also utilizing those with a bunch of power as well. Again, for every single creature card that's exiled, that's 3 counters on it. That it can be a ton on top of, again, the base power and toughness that the creature is going to have. You know, so whatever that creature is that you have exiled that becomes a copy of for 2 mana, or even less, we'll talk about here in a little bit, you can become a copy of that, and then those counters stack on top of that, and you can very easily turn this into an unstoppable force, probably a one-shot KO with the right scenario, and yeah, very easily a one-shot KO, and just many scenarios out there. So, let's talk about some cards that work well with it. I think it's going to be a very popular commander. Sultai commanders tend to be, especially when they're quite interesting like this one. Let's jump into it and talk about the cards that you should be picking up right now. Okay, first up, Training Grounds. Very simple, very effective enchantment for a single blue mana. Activate abilities of creatures you control. Cost 2 less to activate. Can't reduce to less than 1. Unfortunately, it can't reduce to less than 1 because, yeah, that would be nice for Mimeoplasm. But still, being able to go down to 1 mana to activate that is huge because then you can swap between those creatures quite easy. I mean, even easier. 2's not too bad, but obviously 1 mana, even better. And of course, if you have any other creatures that have activated abilities too, saving on those is quite nice. Next up, definitely a direction you can go with this deck, Infect. Yeah, you can definitely go Infect quite easily, quite effectively. A 1/1 human rogue with Infect for 2 mana in blue, Blighted Agent. It's also unblockable. Wizards, bring back unblockable. Like, why did you switch it to can't be blocked? That's just boring. Unblockable, just keyword it. Why not? Okay, anyways, being able to have a 1/1 unblockable Infect is nice, but hey, when you exile Mimeoplasm, and let's say you exile 3 other creatures and you have 9 counters on it, by the way, now all of a sudden your commander is a 10/10 with Infect that is unblockable, that is a one-shot KO on literally any player out there. No matter the situation, unless they have like a thing in play that says, I can't get poison counters, then sure, that rarely happens, but yes. Buried Alive, yeah, your best friend are going to be those Entomb type effects. 3 mana in black sorcery, search life for 3 creature cards, put them in your graveyard, then shuffle. Set yourself up in a huge way to be like, oh yeah, Mimeoplasm, that one, and that one, and that one, and that one. Yay! Go get those creatures, exile them, and then all of a sudden become massive and give me options for what to switch to. Hearthstone, very similar to Training Grounds, but just one little change. I mean, 2 little changes. Artifact for 3. Activate abilities of creatures cost 1 less to activate. Can't reduce unless than 1. So this one, again, does the exact same thing for you when it comes to Training Grounds with, you know, your new commander. This is going to reduce Mimeoplasm's ability down to just 1 mana, which again is huge. It also just has a tiny little side effect and also helps your opponents out as well, potentially. That being said, it's going to be worth it. So yeah, if they have abilities that are activated abilities that cost mana, it can also reduce those down by 1. So just keep that in mind. That being said, also keep in mind that Wall of Blood is a thing, and I love this on your commander. A 0/2 wall, and it reminds you that walls can't block, because that used to be a thing, but it has Defender. For 3 mana in black, pay 1 life, gets ++1 until end of turn. Yes, so this is a repeatable way to pump something, and especially with this commander, you need to keep in mind when you're doing, you know, the whole like, oh, it becomes this creature. Here's what you do with this kind of a commander. You swing first with something that is, well, unblockable or can't be blocked. When it gets through in combat, then you actually switch Mimeoplasm over into a copy of something like this, because it's already attacking. So it becomes a wall that's just like, I don't know, sideways, I guess, like, I'm falling, and then all of a sudden you pump it a ton, and you take a player out. This is basically like turn your commander into Hatred the card, because all of a sudden you're like, okay, my commander is a, well, 0/2 if it's this wall thing, plus those 9 counters I have on it or whatever, so it's at 9 power. I need 12 more power to take that opponent out with commander damage, so I lose 12 life, give it +12/+12, and they are gone. Thank you. Bye-bye. Yeah, Wall of Blood is amazing. You can also do it like in reverse too, like if you Wall of Blood your commander first and then make it, you know, into a, you know, +9/+9 or whatever it needs to be depending on the number of counters you have on it, then you swap it over to something that has Infect. Then that's also a way to get through and swing and win. Yay. Flesh Eater Imp, a good example of that. A 2/2 with flying and Infect for 4 mana. So you can sacrifice a creature, though, and get ++1 until end of turn. Again, sacrificing a creature might not be a bad thing at all with this commander, though, because, sure, early on you might build up your board with a couple different creatures, but eventually you're like, I kind of want my commander to become a copy of that one. So sacrifice it, and all of a sudden you pump this creature, or pump again your commander, which is a copy of this creature. Moving on, Rainbow Efreet. You're gonna want this one. 3/1 flying for 4 mana. It's got blue with phase out. And again, phasing out is a very weird old mechanic mechanic that they kind of brought back recently that basically means like it's there, but it's not there. Or it's not there, but it is there, essentially. So the difference between like blinking and phasing is that when you blink something, again, like, hey, all the counters on it go away. And also, again, rules lawyers out there, please help clarify this. Do you still get access to all those cards that are previously exiled with it? Or when it goes away and comes back, does it forget those? But if you phase it out, nothing happens, nothing changes. It's like it's on the battlefield, but it's also not on the battlefield. So your opponents can't remove it, but it also doesn't change anything. Like you can't lose those counters either. So it's a huge way to kind of get around the downsides of sometimes of blinking, but also take advantage of the upsides of just like, oh, I can pay 2 mana just to protect my commander from basically anything and no one can ever touch it, essentially, as long as I've got mana open to actually get rid of it, essentially, and then just have it come back. So yeah, this is a big effect for you. On top of this one being a 3/1 flyer as well, having flying is quite nice for your commander to be able to get through, so keep that in mind. Next up, Goari, Grave Troll, another good example of a card you might want to utilize. A 0/0 Troll Skeleton for 5 mana in green. Enters the battlefield with a counter on it for each creature card in your graveyard, so this one can be a good threat for you as well when you're solidifying your graveyard. Also, pay 1, remove a counter from it, regenerate Golgari Grave Troll, and it's got Dredge 6. So, well, Dredge 6 is amazing because all of a sudden you can mill yourself a ton just by having this in your graveyard, getting it back to your hand, and doing it again. That being said, on top of, the self-mill strategy that can be very good with this commander, it is a great thing for your commander to become a copy of because, oh, I can just pay 1 mana to regenerate my commander if I need to. Cool. Good for me. So it's got that dual aspect to it. Next up, though, Lord of Extinction. Here's something that you don't need any additional pump effects with. Typically, a Star Elemental for 5 mana in Golgari. Power and toughness each equal to the number of cards in all graveyards. Yeah, probably no matter how many counters you have on your commander, it probably doesn't matter. If your commander is a copy of Lord of Extinction, it is now all of a sudden absolutely massive and probably at the very least 21 power or more. So yeah, if you turn it into a copy of something else first, and it's evasive or unblockable or whatnot, you swing through an opponent and then you switch it to Lord of Extinction. Unfortunately for that opponent, they are gone. Dunzo. Yeah. Majestic, Miriarch, another one can help you out in a different way. Star, power and toughness each equal to twice the number of creatures you control. So again, if you build up a board presence, that can be quite nice. On top of that, though, beginning of each combat, it gains flying until end of turn if you control a creature with flying. The same is true for, here we go. First strike, death touch, double strike. First strike, death touch. Oh my goodness. First strike, double strike, death touch, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, trample, vigilance. I stumbled twice, but I got there. So basically, this is like, hey, you know what? Audric on 1. So basically being able to say, you know what? All my creatures out there. Let's gain double that power, and then let's just become the multitude of all the creatures with all the effects, essentially. So again, if you've got a creature with flying, great. Now I've got some evasion. If you've got double strike, which is rare, and we'll go through that here in a second, in these colors, unfortunately, yeah, that's quite nice too, obviously, when it comes to that. Indestructible for protection, etc., etc. Scourge Familiar, again, when it comes to getting things in your graveyard, there are 3 ways mainly that you're going to be doing that. Number 1, you're going to be milling creatures in your graveyard. Nice. You are going to be entombing creatures in your graveyard. And number 3, you're going to be discarding creatures in your graveyard. I guess there's a 4th way where it's like sacrificing them from play. But still, discarding them from your hand can be great too to set yourself up for your commander. With this, Scourge Familiar, discard a card, add a black mana, which is perfect because, again, that can start paying for that X in your commander's mana cost. Essentially, you're like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I've got 4 creatures in my hand that I really wish my commander could just, exile and become copies of, essentially. So yeah, okay, I'll discard those 4. I get that 4 mana. I'll dump that into the X, and all of a sudden, there you go. They pay for themselves. Now, here we go. Beast of Burden. Yet another great way to just utilize power in a fun way. Star artifact creature for 6 mana. Power and toughness each equal to the total number of creatures in play. Basically, hey, how many creatures are out there? We're playing a game of Commander. A lot, usually. So all of a sudden, my commander is maybe even a 1-shot KO, most likely a 2-shot KO at the very least with this. And of course, if I can utilize double strike with something like Joda's Avenger, yeah, there's only so many ways to give double strike in these colors, unfortunately, but that's okay. 4/4 shapeshifter for 6 mana in total. Pay 0 until end of turn. It gets -1/-1 and gains your choice of double strike, protection from red, vigilance, or shadow. All great, all weird things. So when you make your commander a copy of this, that can be absolutely huge because, well, Your commander can actually like activate all those if you want, because you're gonna have some counters on your commander most likely, and will have more power than just 4, and you're really probably not gonna activate enough times to really take your power down too much. That being said, being able to give it double strike obviously makes it hit incredibly hard. Shadow makes it essentially unblockable, because it can only be blocked by creatures with Shadow then, which no one has any Shadow creatures essentially. Protection from red, sure, that can save some things. Vigilance, sure, if you want to keep it back. Regardless, being able to activate this and then switch into something else, it still keeps those things too, which is quite nice. So yeah, being able to go like, okay, double strike, and then switch over to, in Shadow, switch over to Yargle and Multani. Like, why not? 18-6 Frog Spirit Elemental for 6 mana in total, and that's it. That's all it does. It's just a vanilla creature that is absolutely massive. So again, basically just be like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, my commander just comes a copy of this 18-6. Oh, and it had exiled it. Okay, so I've got 3 counters on my commander. Okay, so it's got 21 power. Okay, so I got through on you. Okay, you're gone. Yeah, being able to literally just swap into a creature that is kind of like a, not a one-card combo, I would say, but kind of in that it turns your commander into a one-shot KO no matter what the scenario is quite fun. And speaking of a one-shot KO no matter what the scenario is, Phage the Untouchable. Yes! 4/4 minion for 7 mana in total. And that's quite the restrictive casting cost, but you're not casting it. Don't cast it. I mean, you can cast it, I guess, if you really want to, but like, we want to get to the graveyard, so either discard it or mill it or, you know, entomb it, essentially. That being said, because if it comes into play any other way, so like, don't reanimate it, comes into play, if you didn't play from your hand, you lose the game. Don't do that. That being said, when it deals combat damage to a creature, that creature can be regenerated, so basically like Death Touch. That being said, when it deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. Yeah, best friends with this Mimeoplasm now. Get Phage into the graveyard, turn Mimeoplasm into a copy of Phage after, you know, swinging through while Mimeoplasm is a copy of like some unblockable creature essentially, and then swap over to this and like, you lose, you lose, you lose, you lose. Yeah, being able to just get through this can be quite nice. Again, you can utilize a lot of different kinds of creatures with this commander. You can go like big power, you can go big effects, you can go, yeah, just some weird wonky fun things, and yeah, have fun with it. It's gonna be a great time. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. Comment below with your thoughts on it. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.